The moment we wear it, our spirits lift. It helps us grow strong in body and in mind. As we wear it, we learn patience and respect. The belt system motivates students to strive harder and continue growing. This uniform shapes movement into grace and turns performance into something thrilling. Now, embraced around the world, Taekwondo shares our culture, philosophy, and values with pride and spirit. Though it may seem simple, this uniform holds your passion and your journey. It belongs to Taekwondo. Wear the extraordinary. Be with Taekwondo.
On Wednesday, the wife of former President Yoon Suk-yeol, Kim Gun-hee, appeared at the office of this special prosecutor to address allegations made against her, including stock price manipulation and abuse of power. Wednesday's investigation wrapped up after over 7 hours of questioning. 36 additional areas hit by deadly downpours last month have been designated as special disaster zones by President Lee Jae-myung, who pledged the utmost aid to help affected residents return to their daily lives as soon as possible. Global investment banks are upping South Korea's economic growth outlook for the year, saying that it'll expand by an average of 0.9%, pointing at the country's robust exports and eased tariff uncertainties. Former First Lady Kim Gun-hee has been summoned by a special counsel over a series of allegations made against her. Kim is now the first wife of a former president to face a public summons by prosecutors as a suspect. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young starts us off.
The special counsel's first questioning of former First Lady Kim Gun-hee lasted over 7 hours. The face-to-face session held on Wednesday at the office of Special Counsel Min Jung-gi in Jongno-gu District ended at around 5:46 p.m., about 7 hours and 23 minutes after it began at 10:23 a.m. Kim, the wife of former President Yoon Suk-yeol, then went through the written record of her questioning. The questioning comes after the special counsel mailed a summons to Kim's residence about 2 weeks ago to request her appearance as a suspect. Shortly after 10 a.m. on Wednesday, Kim arrived at the office, bowed and apologized to the public for causing concern before being questioned.
I am truly sorry that a nobody like myself has caused concern for the people. I will faithfully undergo the questioning.
However, she did not respond to questions from reporters about the allegations. This marks the first time in South Korea's constitutional history that a first lady has been publicly named as a suspect in an investigation. The special counsel team focused on 5 of the 16 allegations made against Kim, starting with her purported role in manipulating stock prices. Other allegations include interference in the candidate nomination process during past elections and receiving luxury gifts from the Unification Church through a broker. Since Kim did not agree to be video recorded, the face-to-face questioning took place without it. According to the special counsel team, Kim did not exercise her right to remain silent. Ahead of the questioning, Kim's representative said she would answer questions as fully as possible without refusing, but wanted to avoid questioning after 9 p.m. due to her poor health. The special counsel is expected to summon Kim again for further questioning over other allegations. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has designated 36 more areas as special disaster zones, heavily impacted by last month's heavy rainfall. According to a written briefing by presidential spokesperson Kang on Wednesday, there are 16 cities, districts, and counties, such as Asan City in Chungcheongnam-do Province and Bukgu District in Gwangju City, along with 20 towns and villages. This comes 2 weeks after the president first declared 6 cities and counties as special disaster zones. Under that status, local governments can receive state funding for recovery efforts, while residents can qualify for tax deferrals and discounts on utility bills. South Korea has completed the dismantling of loudspeakers directed toward North Korea. Some 20 speakers along the frontline areas have been removed and will be stored at nearby military units. This latest move follows the suspension of loudspeaker broadcast by the Lee Jae-myung administration as it entered office in June. Now, North Korea has yet to acknowledge this latest extension of an olive branch. South Korea serves as a role model given its proactive stance in defense against North Korea and its increased military spending. This is according to U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Elbridge Colby. In a recent post on his social media platform, he also stressed the importance of modernizing the ROK-U.S. alliance in response to emerging regional security concerns. South Korea's August extraordinary session of the National Assembly opened today with political tensions at a boiling point. The ruling and opposition parties remain locked in a standoff over key bills, marking the first time in a year that the legislature has entered a formal filibuster standoff. Joining us in the studio is our political correspondent, Moon Hae-ryun. Welcome, Hae-ryun.
Thank you for having me on the show.
So, Hae-ryun, walk us through the current situation at the parliament.
That's right. So the latest political showdown currently revolves around 5 contentious bills. And so far, we've seen that 2 of these bills have been introduced at parliament before being followed up by filibusters launched by the opposition People Power Party. So on Monday, the PPP launched a 24-hour filibuster to block a controversial broadcasting reform bill. But on Tuesday, the DP and the Liberal bloc ended it with a supermajority vote as allowed under Assembly rules. With the threshold met, the DP swiftly passed the bill, 178 in favour and 2 against. A second reform bill was then introduced, triggering yet another PPP filibuster. That too was then cut short at midnight as the July extraordinary session ended after just 7 hours. The media reform bill that was passed through Parliament yesterday afternoon is an amendment of the Broadcasting Act and is one of 3 contentious media reform bills backed by the DP. The bills aim to change how the heads of public broadcasters are appointed. So rather than being selected solely by a broadcaster's board of directors, a new recommendation committee composed of experts from various sectors will now nominate candidates. Currently, board members are selected largely based on political appointments, often resulting in accusations of government bias. Under the new law, a broader, more diverse recommendation committee, including members from civil society and academia, would nominate board members. The number of board members, too, will increase. The ruling party argues this will reduce political interference and promote independence in public broadcasting. But the opposition strongly disagrees, saying the change could instead shift control towards liberal-leaning civic groups and further politicize media under the guise of reform. A spokesperson from the presidential office today commented on the passage of the bill, saying that it aligns closely with the Lee Jae-myung administration's push to return public broadcasting to the people and represents an important first step in reforming how public broadcasters are run.
It represents a crucial first step in institutionalizing reforms to the governance structure of public broadcasters, an issue that has long been considered an urgent task.
Now, Hae-ryun, you mentioned there are 5 contentious bills on the table. What are the others?
So beyond the media reform bills that I just talked about, there are two others that lawmakers are currently divided on. And one of them is the so-called Yellow Envelope Bill, which is essentially an amendment of labor union laws that limits employer action on striking union members. And another is a proposed revision to the Commercial Act that aims to strengthen corporate governance transparency and protect minority shareholders' rights, particularly within large corporations. And both are being championed by the Democratic Party, while the People Power Party remains staunchly opposed. And here's what they had to say on the Yellow Envelope Bill.
By adjusting the balance in labor management relations, this will be the first step toward enabling dialogue at sites where subcontractors couldn't even speak to their main contractors, paving the way for voluntary horizontal cooperation.
The Yellow Envelope Bill could encourage unlimited illegal strikes and has high potential to devastate industrial sites.
Then, Hae-ryun, my question is then, will these bills be finally passed in the August session, do you think?
Well, so looking ahead, it looks as though the August session is going to be highly combative as it has been so far. And another plenary session is currently scheduled for August 21st. And the People Power Party has already warned that it will launch filibusters against all of the bills remaining on the agenda if they're pushed forward without bipartisan agreement. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party appears to be taking an approach that's being described as salami slicing. So they're passing bills one by one to wear down resistance. So all eyes are now on whether the opposition will stick to its filibuster threats.
Indeed. Hae-ryun, thank you for the breakdown tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Global investment banks are upgrading their outlook for the Korean economy this year. A positive shift notably evident even in JP Morgan, once the most skeptical. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young has more.
Major global investment banks are raising their forecast for South Korea's real GDP growth this year. According to the Korea Center for International Finance, the average 2025 growth forecast for South Korea among 8 major global investment banks stood at 0.9% as of the end of July. Notably, JP Morgan, which had previously held the most pessimistic view on the Korean economy, has significantly upgraded its economic growth forecast by 0.2 percentage points to 0.7% in just 2 months. Following the Bank of Korea's second quarter GDP announcement last month, JP Morgan assessed that Q2 GDP growth slightly exceeded market expectations, driven by strong exports and an increase in manufacturing. Goldman Sachs also raised its growth forecast by 0.1 percentage point to 1.2%, reflecting the outcomes of Korea's tariff negotiations with the U.S. In its August 1st report, the bank noted that the deal with the U.S. reduces uncertainties regarding tariff on specific items such as semiconductors, adding that Korea is not at a disadvantage compared to other countries. Regarding whether the Bank of Korea will also raise its forecast and its revised economic outlook this coming August, an expert noted that
while the uncertainty from the tariff negotiations is easing, potentially improving our exports, it's still unlikely that these agreements will drastically raise the economic growth forecast. Nevertheless, it will probably be slightly better than the 0.8% we had expected.
The Bank of Korea, in its May forecast, projected this year's annual growth rate at 0.8% and anticipated that the supplementary budget would boost the rate by 0.1 of a percentage point. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump is bragging about his country's recent trade deal with South Korea, saying that the deal would open South Korea's market. Trump also announced that the U.S. will raise pharmaceutical tariffs significantly. Lee Seung-jae reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday touted the recent trade deal made between Washington and Seoul, saying that the agreement will significantly boost American automobile exports. In a CNBC interview, Trump said South Korea was a closed country, but the trade deal opened the market, referring to it as a tremendous business. The U.S. leader said the U.S. will be able to sell cars, trucks, and SUVs to South Korea. While South Korea has long imported American cars, the U.S. has repeatedly criticized Korea's automobile safety and environmental regulations, viewing them as non-tariff barriers. Meanwhile, during the same interview, Trump also said that his administration will raise levies on imported pharmaceuticals to 150% in a year. He added that the tariffs will then be raised to 250% later, as he unveiled a plan to announce more sector-specific tariffs within the next week or so. And Trump's push to reduce America's trade deficit through tariffs seems to be working, according to latest data. According to the Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis, the U.S. trade deficit narrowed significantly in June, while the trade gap with China fell to its lowest level in over 21 years. While the goods trade deficit dropped to 10.8%, reaching its lowest point since September 2023. However, beyond the trade figures, the U.S. economy is showing signs of strain as key measure of activity in the U.S. service sector stalled in July, with businesses citing rising costs and growing uncertainty due to the influx of new import taxes. 이승재, Arirang News.
A new trend among young people in South Korea, the so-called Gen Zs. They say they would purchase products made by socially responsible businesses, even if they cost them more. Our Kim Do-yeon has more.
As ESG practices become more widespread in Korea's economy and society, so-called value-based consumption, making purchasing decisions based on personal beliefs and values, is emerging as a key consumer trend among Gen Z. According to a survey released on Wednesday by the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which polled 350 people aged 17 to 28 nationwide on perceptions of ESG management and consumption trends, 66.9% of respondents said they would choose products from companies practicing ESG even if they're slightly more expensive. This suggests ESG efforts are having a direct impact on brand preference and purchase decisions. But experts say it's always important to continue monitoring companies.
Some companies do a good job with ESG management and even obtain certification for their efforts. However, there are also cases where companies receive such certification but still engage in problematic practices. That's why it's important for consumers to look closely and make informed judgments about the companies they support.
The survey also reflected this. It found that Gen Z is quick to boycott companies involved in social controversies or ethical misconduct. More than 6 in 10 respondents said they had stopped purchasing from a company due to unethical behavior or negative ESG-related issues. Young people are also highly sensitive to the authenticity of corporate ESG efforts. In particular, 65.4% of respondents expressed concern over the issue of greenwashing. This highlights the risk companies face of being shunned by young consumers if their ESG activities are perceived as mere marketing tactics lacking genuine commitment. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea will temporarily allow visa-free entry for group tours from China starting September 29th, just ahead of China's week-long National Day holiday through June next year. The decision was made on Wednesday during a government task force meeting on boosting tourism chaired by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok. The exemption will apply to groups of 3 or more Chinese nationals traveling with tour agencies designated by South Korea's Culture Ministry. Since last November, China has permitted South Korean nationals to enter without a visa for up to 30 days, a policy that is set to end this December. South Korean football star Son Heung-min is heading to Major League Soccer in the U.S., joining Los Angeles FC after spending 10 years with Tottenham Hotspur. His transfer will be made official at a press conference on Wednesday local time. Our Pyeongyang has this report.
According to AP News, Son Heung-min has officially agreed to a contract with Los Angeles FC, finalizing his move to Major League Soccer after a decade at Tottenham Hotspur. This comes after the 33-year-old forward announced his decision to leave Tottenham at a press conference held in Seoul on Saturday. Son was seen in attendance at LAFC's Leagues Cup match against Tigres on Tuesday night at BMO Stadium, where he was spotted in the VIP section alongside club officials. He appeared on the stadium's big screen late in the first half, waving to a roaring crowd of fans. LAFC will formally introduce Son at a press conference on Wednesday local time, where he's expected to make his first public appearance in the club's black and gold jersey. The event is expected to serve as his official signing ceremony. According to ESPN, LAFC will pay a transfer fee of around $26 million, setting a new MLS record and surpassing the previous record of $22 million set by Atlanta United signing of Manuel Latiloff. Son is also expected to earn more than Sergio Busquets of Inter Miami, who currently has the third highest salary in the MLS at around $8.5 million. Son reportedly turned down a lucrative offer from Saudi club Al Ittihad in 2023, but this summer actively pushed for a move away from Tottenham. While Al Ittihad made another bid, LAFC ultimately secured a signature, reportedly with strong encouragement from Son's father to go to the U.S. During his decade at Tottenham Hotspur, Son scored 127 league goals and tallied 101 assists across 454 appearances in all competitions. Now joining LAFC, Son is expected to settle in comfortably in Los Angeles, which is home to the largest Korean community in the U.S. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
Blackpink member Rosé has been honored with 8 nominations at this year's MTV Video Music Awards. And now, 8 nominations is the highest number ever for a K-pop solo artist. Rosé has been nominated for Video of the Year and Song of the Year for her duet 아파트 with pop star Bruno Mars, among others. Sales of translated Korean books at stores overseas have surged, following author Kang's winning of the Nobel Prize in Literature last year. According to the Literature Translation Institute of Korea, sales of literary works that it supported via translation and publication soared some 130% on year in 2024 to amount to around 1.2 million books. International sales of Kang's 19 works rose fivefold to 150,000 last year compared to 30,000 in 2023. Downtown Seoul has been transformed into a summer playground to offer the public some fun relief from the blistering heat. Our An Sung-jin has this report.
One last splash before the summer ends. The sweltering days of summer will soon come to an end. But Seoul isn't ready to let go of the season just yet, especially here in Gwanghwamun Square.
In this scorching August heat, those that are trying to escape the sun and the heat took the chance to cool off in the water.
From water slides to water buckets, the location has lots of attractions for visitors to enjoy.
I came here with my mom and 2 aunts. It was hot outside, but once we got into the water, it felt cool and so much fun.
As August 15 is Gwangbokjeol, the 80th anniversary of Korean independence, special activities have also been planned around the theme Let's Dive into Gwangbok. Co-hosted with the Seoul Regional Office of Patriots and Veterans Affairs, the event also holds booths to raise awareness of the country's struggle for independence.
We got to swim and do some hands-on activities. I even wrote a message celebrating the 80th anniversary of Korean independence.
By transforming the urban landscape into a summer playground, the 2025 Seoul Summer Beach offers some relief from the heat in downtown Seoul.
We organized this with the idea of creating a summer getaway right in the middle of the city. We started it to add some fun not only for visitors from around the world, but also for locals. We're glad that so many people came to enjoy it in the heart of Seoul.
The event runs until this Friday, so before summer is gone, why not take a dip in Gwanghwamun Square? An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Rain was coming down hard in the northern parts of Korea, dropping heavier rain in parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces. But it was very muggy here in Seoul. And from tonight, southern regions will be seeing heavier rain into tomorrow morning, but Jeju Island will see rain all day tomorrow. And Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island will be seeing downpours, and most of southern provinces could be seeing 30 to 70 millimeters an hour of rain lashing down overnight. And with the rain moving in, a heat advisory was lifted in the central parts of Korea, but the heat returns tomorrow, starting out the day at 27 degrees here in Seoul and over in Busan. Then by the afternoon, Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju will be getting up to 32 degrees under sunnier skies in most parts. Jeju will be rainy all day tomorrow. In fact, those on Jeju need to keep that umbrella closed as rain is expected through early next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
"2025 celebrates the 80th anniversary of liberation. A place filled with culture, history, and diverse experiences. This is the Independence Hall of Korea. Upholding the values of the independence movement, and together with the whole nation, we will make Korea great. The Independence Hall of Korea.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts, or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Kobe-jjim. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait, did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.
톡톡 터질 듯한 장미처럼 가잖아.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 에이펙은 자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개방.
신라의 정신이 에이펙 2025로 이어집니다.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyun. With the South Korea-U.S. summit now expected in late August, President Lee Jae-myung is stepping into one of the most complex diplomatic moments of his term. Just weeks after sealing a trade deal that avoided major concessions on sensitive sectors such as rice and beef, attention now turns to unfinished details and potential security demands from Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump, in his second term, is pushing allies to modernize their roles, not just their budgets. From joint military exercises to Seoul's stance in the Indo-Pacific, this upcoming summit will test how far South Korea can stretch its pragmatic diplomacy while preserving strategic autonomy. To break down the stakes and explore where the alliance may be headed, we're joined in the studio by Dr. Kim Hyun-wook, president of the Sejong Institute and a leading expert on diplomacy and U.S. foreign policy. A big welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Kim, let's first begin with the trade agreement that has been signed lately. So, despite avoiding further market openings in rice and beef as well, the Korea-U.S. trade deal has now been formally concluded. I wonder first, what's your assessment on the overall deal?
Well, yeah, the deal has been broken right at the end of the date, which is July 31st. That was the final day of the procrastination of the deal, so 3-month delay. When you compare with the European Union and Japanese government deal with President Trump, I think the outcome was pretty good. We were worrying about what kinds of requests will come out from the President Trump, but I think when you look at the outcome, it was, I think, a well-done deal. I think it was a reciprocal tariff 15% and automobile 50%. And investment in the United States, $350 billion, which I think was moderately fine. And also we promised to purchase United States energies like liquefied natural gas, $100 billion worth for 4 years. So overall, I think it was good. But one thing that's a little bit concerning is that the 15% tariff on automobiles, it's all the same rate for the European Union cars and Japanese cars. But before this tariff, 15%, we were enjoying 0% tariff for the U.S. market because of U.S.-South Korea FTA, free trade agreement. And Japanese and European Union cars were paying the 2.5 tariff for the U.S. market. So we were actually enjoying a comparative price advantage over European and Japanese cars in the U.S. market, but that advantage, I think, has disappeared. So that's something that South Korean car companies have to compete in an equal basis with Japanese and European cars.
But overall, comparatively, it was a fair enough negotiation. But still, we are aware that other provisions, the details are still in flux. Although a broad agreement, of course, has been reached, several provisions are still pending under talks with Washington. Of those, Dr. Kim, which specific aspects do you think we should monitor during these follow-up talks?
Yeah, we know the styles of President Trump. When he thinks something is not proper and appropriate, he can fix it right away. So maybe in the summit meeting, if President Trump thinks that, okay, maybe South Korean government needs to invest more in the United States, he can raise the amount of investment in the United States. And one more thing that is still not very clear is that President Trump is speaking that the South Korean government promised to open its markets for U.S. rice and beef. But South Korean government is denying all that thing. So that's something we have to look at because in the negotiation process, United States government has been insisting that South Korea has to open for the U.S. beef, which are more than 30 months old, and rice should be open. So all these kinds of openness, market openness, is something I think is still pending. We'll see how it goes.
Right, so there are still details that need to be discussed. Now, there are major events for the month of August: Liberation Day, joint military drills, and also a packed presidential schedule, of course. And of course, we call it a diplomatically dense month for Seoul. So how do you make of this timing? How might this timing shape the Lee administration's approach to summit strategy? And do you think it offers any advantages?
Well, one decision made by this government is that the President Lee Jae-myung is not going to Beijing for the victory ceremony by Chinese government. Yeah, you're right that a lot of events are scheduled in August and right before the summit meeting. I think the summit will happen sometime late August or something. But recently, Foreign Minister Jo Hyun, he had an interview with the Washington Post, and he clearly mentioned the directions of this government's foreign policies. It is called a pragmatic diplomacy based upon South Korea's national interest, but he clearly mentioned that China is somewhat becoming problematic with its neighbors. And something like South China Sea issues and Yellow Sea issues, this is something that is, protruding into other countries' territories. So, and also he also mentioned that economic relations with China is changing, and Chinese companies are now competing with South Korean companies. South China has to abide by international law. So I think his interview with the Washington Post is very clear that Lee Jae-myung government's diplomacy centers upon the solid South Korea-U.S. alliance. So I think this will be the direction that this government will have when President Lee Jae-myung meets President Trump, I think.
So the leaders are expected to meet in late August, and there should be a lot of topics to discuss between the two allies, of course. Dr. Kim, what do you think are the possible items on the agenda for talks?
I think the most important thing is the military issues and alliance issues, because there have been an interim national defense strategic guidance published by Trump government. And also, I think in June this year, a Pacific Deterrence Initiative was released by this government. And the contents are very clear. The U.S. is focusing on China issues, China threat, and homeland security. That's of priority. And the local threats like Iran and North Korea, the allies should take care of all their things. by themselves, not the United States. Maybe U.S. will help a little bit, but for example, in the Korean Peninsula, South Korean military has to take care of and take initiative in deterring and dealing with North Korea threat, not the U.S. forces in Korea. U.S. forces in Korea will fly freely into other regional areas to deal with China threat issues and Taiwan's trade issues and areas. So that's second one. And for that reason, in order for allies to take care of the regional and local threats by themselves, allies should raise their defense budget more. So that's pretty much a big picture. So I think based upon that, more pressure on South Korea to take a more active role will be something that we expect from the summit meeting. Now South Korea, the U.S. government is expecting South Korea to raise more burden sharing and cost sharing, and so-called strategic flexibility, which means that U.S. forces in Korea will fly freely into other areas, not committing into the Korean Peninsula only, into other areas like Taiwan's trade areas and South China Sea areas. And that's something, the big picture of the defense strategy that the U.S. is thinking in the Pacific region. And those changes and transformation of South Korea-U.S. alliance will be a big agenda that the summit meeting will deal with, I think.
Right. So it also circles upon, defense, as you've mentioned. And Trump has been calling for alliance modernization, including raising Seoul's defense burden and also expanding the role of Indo-Pacific security. Then when this topic actually comes into light, what kind of boundaries do you think South Korea should consider in this new phase of alliance?
We definitely now have different threat perception. Of course, the Lee Jae-myung government is not even trying to think of North Korea as a threat, but traditionally South Korean government was thinking of North Korea threat as a major source of threat. But now the Trump government is looking at China as a major threat and wants to calm down North Korea threat by dialogue and talk with Kim Jong-un. So these kinds of different threat perception is making a lot of coordination difficult, I think. So I think we have to come and talk and coordinate different threat perceptions first. Of course, we look at North Korea as a major source of threat, but if U.S. forces in Korea wants to fly into other areas, like to deal with China threats, South Korea has to be willing to support it, because that's what the United States is thinking as a major strategic objective of its military forces in South Korea. So even though there seems to be some diverging threat perceptions and diverging strategic objectives, I think the two countries have to talk and coordinate as much as they can. Because if that coordination and dialogue is not successful, alliance will have a very big risk in the near future. So that's what we have to do now.
Right. Then, Dr. Kim, alongside that, so we are awaiting the summit. What do you think are some objectives in the standpoint of South Korea that we should, focus on and likely want to pursue during the talks?
I think we all remember what happened after Lee Jae-myung was elected as president of South Korea. Laura Loomer in the United States, big mama of MAGA group, she tweeted in the internet that, okay, communist regime has come out in South Korea, and the White House position about the Lee Jae-myung government is that, okay, China should not intervene in other democratic countries' internal affairs, all that kind of things. So I think there are some bad misperception in the United States about South Korean government. What we have to do foremost is that President Lee Jae-myung has to meet President Trump and have built up its close personal ties and show to the President Trump that South Korea is very important and solid and continuing ally to the United States. We are not communist country. We are definitely a democratic country. So this kinds of wrong perception that has been brought up within the United States is something wrong. Then we have to rectify that. That's, I think, the most important thing we have to do when two leaders meet in the United States.
Right, definitely an important point to highlight that our alliance, of course, decades of alliance. Now, this also leads to a deeper question. You know, the world is, especially America, is focusing on its America First policy, and we have to question at this point, what does it actually mean to be an American ally in the year 2025?
Yeah, I think, I don't know from when, but from some time on, the U.S. hegemonic position is getting weaker and weaker. Maybe it's because of what happened in 2008, in which there was financial crisis in the United States, and the U.S.-China relationship has changed a little bit, and China became more proactive in the global areas. We don't know, but now what China is doing is that its technological rise is very quick and solid and visible. But the U.S. is losing its competitiveness in the high-tech manufacturing. And of course, when you look at what happened in the Biden government, is that President Biden was ganging up allies and partners to deal with China altogether. But President Trump is breaking all the ties and coalitions with allies and partners. Bilaterally, it's imposing tariff on other countries. And also maybe that's some kind of measures to make those countries to be dependent upon in the U.S. markets. But I think now, you know, there are a lot of complaints within the allies, like in the Indo-Pacific region and European unions, that, hey, is President Trump becoming antagonistic to allies? Who are real challenges? Is real challenge the United States or China? So there are a lot of confusion and complaints about what Trump government is doing towards its allies and partners. So I think now it's very mixed feelings being an ally. Okay, the U.S. has been unilaterally providing security and economic benefits to allies, but that kind of role is now getting weaker. But still, when the U.S. is losing its hegemonic position, which country will be the leader that maintains the liberal international order in this world? So I think this is an important inflection point now, and a lot of allies are having confusing in their policies and alliance policies with towards the United States. So many allies, European allies, and like in the Pacific region, like Japan, they're still trying to strengthen the alliance mechanism with the United States, but at the same time, they're trying to look at how they're going to live without the United States. So that kind of bifurcated policy is something that they're trying to pursue now.
Mm-hmm. So it leaves us thinking about how to maintain allies and also be less dependent on America too. Now, so with a lot of things happening between South Korea and the U.S., we want to have a diagnosis of the current state of alliance between the two countries, diplomatically, militarily, and also economically. What's your view on this?
Yes. Alliance is still fine, and I think this is just one of many alliance transformations. There have been a lot of alliance transformations. When Soviet Union collapsed, the U.S. engagement commitment to the Korean Peninsula has been weaker, and I think at the time after that, U.S. began to request more commitment by allies. And after the 9/11 terrorist attack, the U.S. foreign policy and security policy changed, and alliance relationship changed too. I mean, the U.S. began to ask more support by allies rather than just unilaterally, U.S. being the only security provider to allies. And 2009 South Korea-U.S. alliance have changed into a comprehensive strategic alliance, which means that the alliance will not be confined into the Korean Peninsula, but be expanding into a more regional and global spheres. So I think at this time, the alliance is expecting another transformation, I think, with U.S. focusing on China, and South Korea still want to stick to the Korean Peninsula issues and North Korea threats. I think this is a important time, but I think by a lot of talk and discussions, we'll figure out throughout the alliance transformation period again, I think.
So this shift, this phase actually highlights how multidimensional the relationship has become. Now, moving forward, before we let you go, Dr. Kim, what single factor do you think will be the most important factor that will shape the America-South Korea alliance moving forward?
Well, that's a very big and complicated question, but I think the core is on China. Not only about the alliance, but about South Korea's foreign policies. I think we have to think about what kinds of strategic value China gives to South Korea. After China was experiencing rapid economic rise, we were expecting from China several things, like maybe China can help us to pursue denuclearization of North Korea, which I don't think was well successful. And by the deepening economic ties between China and South Korea, we were expecting and enjoying a lot of market sharing and cheap labor of China, which I think was very good for our economic success and development. But now China is competing with South Korean companies. No more cheap labor, no more market sharing by South Korean companies. So I'm just wondering, okay, China is a big country next to the Korean Peninsula. We should not have unnecessary conflict with China. But what kinds of benefit China give to South Korea? I think that's something we have to think hard. And in order for a substantial and important relationship between China and South Korea to continue, we have to find out what kind of value and what kind of interest China is giving to South Korea. So I think that's a very fundamental question we have to find an answer to, so that alliance relationship with the United States, U.S. is focusing on China threat. We have to figure out how the alliance will evolve in the near future.
So it will be important to weigh in how China would act as a variable in Korea's future development. But as for now, we will have to conclude our discussion here at this point. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights, Dr. Kim.
Thank you so much.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service.